All right. Good afternoon. Well, I guess if you're in California, it's morning. So I guess I'll just say hello. I'm Eric Twiggs, coach at the Automotive Training Institute. I want to talk to you today about mastering the fundamentals of the phone call. And when I think of the fundamentals, I'm reminded of one of my favorite people, my favorite martial artists of all time. His name is Bruce Lee. And here's what he had to say about the fundamentals. I am not afraid of the man who practiced 10,000 kicks once, but I am afraid of the man who practiced one kick 10,000 times. And I like to share that quote, and I like to focus on the fundamentals because quite often I'll be talking to a shop owner, and the shop owner is like, Twiggs, I need your best idea to help me to improve car count. I need something innovative. I need something that's outside the box that's going to take me to the next level. Meanwhile, this person is neglecting the basics. And anyone that's great, anyone that's successful over a long period of time, they're brilliant at the basics. They've mastered the fundamentals. And even if you think about the martial arts, the difference between the black belt and the white belt is that the black belt has mastered those basic techniques. He's doing ordinary things at an extraordinary level. So that's our goal. We want to do something as ordinary as answering the phone, but we want to do it at an extraordinary level. And we're going to talk about how to do that today. And we're talking about mastering the fundamentals of the phone. Now, I want to address the elephant in the room before we move forward. And as we think about this COVID-19, we think about the coronavirus crisis, the question isn't if we will come out on the other side. The question really is, how will we come out? How will you be better because of what we went through? How will you be better because of what we're experiencing? And there's a book, great book. I've been recommending it to my shops. The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. It's the timeless art of turning trials into triumph. And what an opportunity we have in front of us to get better on the phones. We can turn this obstacle of social distancing and COVID and everything else, we can turn this into a great opportunity. So when business does pick up again, and when we come back on the other side, we're much better on the phones and we've mastered the fundamentals. But I would truly encourage you to get this book. It's The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. Now I want to talk to you about, we're talking about the fundamentals of the phone. I want to talk to you about a fundamental problem. But first, let's get into some numbers. I'm just going to throw a question out and feel free to answer through the chat what you think the answer might be. What percentage do you think of all customers actually call before they come to your shop? Again, feel free to put the answers in the chat. What do you think that is? What percentage of all customers would you say actually call first before coming into the shop? All right, see some numbers, 80%, 85%. 50%, 60% for us, 70. Okay. So the studies always say that it's 68% or so of customers that call before they actually come into an automotive repair facility. And I would be willing to bet during this current season we're in, that number may be higher. It might be 80%, it might be 90%. And that's why it's good that you're on this session right now, learning how to master the fundamentals of the phone. So here's the next question for you to chime in on. You can, again, put this answer in the chat. What percentage of advisors would you say offer the customer an appointment? 30%? Okay. 70%, 50%? All right. Okay. See some numbers coming in there. 20%. Here's the official statistic. This number came as we phone shop service advisors and service managers from around the country. And we found, based on our shopping, 4%, only 4% of service advisors across the country and in Canada are actually offering the customer an appointment. So 68% of customers are calling at a minimum, but only 4% of the service advisors are actually taking the time to follow what we teach and offer the customer an appointment. So get this. If you're not focused on the phones and how they're being answered, you're gambling that your service advisor, that your service manager is in the top 4% of the country without any interaction from you. Now, I'm not a betting man, but that's not a wager that I would even ever want to make. It's better for us to really take the time, embrace what I'm going to talk about here shortly, because again, only 4 out of 100 are actually answering the phone the right way and offering an appointment. What an opportunity we have in front of us. So in a previous life, I was a corporate trainer for corporate automotive service facilities. And I would actually do phone training. I would do sessions similar to what I'm doing now. And we would teach people how to answer the phones. We give them an outline and everything else. And there's something that would happen. It got me so frustrated. It literally made the hairs on my head stand up. You know it had to be bad if it made my hair stand up on its head, on my head. I would train a service advisor. He'd sit in my session. I would train him on how to answer the phone. He would pass with flying colors. He would go back to his shop. He would fail phone shops, but I would get the blame. They always would blame training. Well, he must not have been trained correctly. And even worse, they would actually send this person back to my class again to be retrained. So here's something before we get into the meat of this phone fundamental session that we need to understand. So if someone is struggling on the phone, it's one of 3 issues. It's either a head issue, a heart issue, or it's a hands issue. So please understand that. So if it's a head issue, that means it's something that can be fixed with training, right? They just need the knowledge and skill to succeed. Now, in some shops across the country, based off of this current crisis, we're slower than we used to be. So we have more time and opportunity to role play. So if you're role playing with your service advisor or your service manager and they're executing that script and they're passing with flying colors, guess what? We can't say it's a head issue because they've demonstrated that they have the necessary knowledge and skill. So we know it's not a head issue. We can take that out of the training. The only way it's a head issue is if they can't do it. They don't know what to do. They don't have the knowledge and skill. Next could be a heart issue. They just aren't motivated to do what we're asking. They don't understand the why. They don't understand what's in it for them. There's a motivation issue. Sometimes it can be fixed, sometimes it can't. Sometimes it's just an issue where that person's want to is broken. And maybe they just don't want to do it. They don't want to buy in. But we need to understand. So sometimes they may have the knowledge and skill. They could do it if they had to, but they just don't want to do it. They just aren't motivated. Or it could just be a hands issue. They have the knowledge and skill. They want to do it, but the conditions at the shop don't support them so they can do it. For example, it's hard to answer the phone if there's something wrong with the phone lines, if there's something wrong with the phones, if we don't have computer terminals, there's no area for them to really be able to execute a quality phone call. So we need to recognize that as well. We need to make sure we address the hands issues where we can. But it's very important that we can understand head, heart, hands before we decide that it's a training issue or that the training is to be blamed. Very important as we're talking about mastering the fundamentals of the phone. So we're going to key on three primary areas as we go through this, as we're talking about the fundamentals. We're going to talk about smiling. We're going to talk about pricing. And we're going to talk about measuring. Those are the three key areas as we break down these core fundamentals. So let's get at it. First, let's look at smiling. There was a shop owner years ago, like in the 80s. He owned all these Midas locations. And if he walked into your shop and had to tell you more than one time to make sure you're smiling on the phone, it was a fireable offense. Like that was just a hot button for him. He would literally terminate you if he kept having to tell you to smile on the phone. This was so important. It was so important to him that he actually did something weird. He did something crazy. You can see there in the picture. He actually would have mirrors sitting by the phone. So if you worked for him, when you went to answer the phone, you saw a reflection of yourself, and that served as a reminder to you to make sure that you were smiling. And I know there's somebody, you're watching me right now and you're saying, Twiggs, that sounds really corny. I mean, that's just real, all sunshine and rainbows. Why is smiling so important? Let's break this down. First, you need to understand the 7% rule of communication. This is a good time if you're taking notes, you may want to write this down. The 7% rule of communication. Here's how it goes. When you're communicating a message, only 7% of what you communicate comes through the words that you speak. That's it. Only 7%. So if you understand the 7% rule of communication, it'll make you more likely to smile when you're on the phone. 38% of the message comes through your tone of voice. And guess what? Your tone of voice will make subtle shifts if you're always smiling, as opposed to if you just have a frown on your face or if you're looking serious. That's why people can actually hear if you're smiling on the phone. So a big chunk of your message is communicated through the tone of voice. And if you're smiling, that's going to improve and sound more inviting. And by the way, I mean, in the times we're in right now, you have to understand your customers, they're just getting barraged with bad news and hearing about the crisis. So they're just looking for someone that's smiling, someone that cheers them up, someone that's pleasant. So now more than ever, it's critical to make sure that we're smiling on the phone. So 38% of the message is coming through your tone of voice. And then 55% actually comes through your body language. It's conveyed through your body language. And I have something for you to try when we hang up from this webinar. Try this. It's physically impossible to smile and experience a negative emotion at the exact same time. Physically impossible. So you can literally shift how you feel just by smiling. You can shift how your customer feels when they hear that pleasant tone of voice on the other end of the phone. So please, let's make sure that we're smiling on the phone. And here's a friendly reminder. It's actually, and this is happening in quite a few of our shops, where they've actually got little stickers by the phone to remind the person that that person is, and then they see the sticker and they just start smiling because now they've got this reminder. And a lot of our shops have gone out and gotten mirrors and put them by the phone, so it serves as a reminder to make sure we've got that smile in place, because you can hear it, you can tell the difference. So please, let's make sure that we're smiling. So smiling is really the first key fundamental that we want to focus on. So next is pricing. And here is this next story. I wish it weren't true, but it is. Here's an example of what not to do when we talk about pricing. So the idea is that we shouldn't be giving prices over the telephone. And we'll get into why here in a little bit. But we had this service advisor. He came back from one of the ATI service advisor classes where we instructed him not to give a price over the phone. And we went through the reasons and selling the visit and all that good stuff. And so he got a phone call. He was actually phone shopped by us. And he answers the call. The shopper says, hey, I've got a 2010 Ford Fusion. I need brakes. How much for brakes? Here's what he says. Yeah, I just left this training class with ATI, and they told me that I can't give a price over the phone. Here's my response. That was my reaction when I heard this phone shop. That is a classic example of what not to do. We don't want to come across that like we're just towing the company line. And the reason that we want to convey to the customer is that it's really for their benefit. It's in their best interest if we don't price over the phone. So we need to really understand, what does right sound like? Because we don't want to give a price over the phone. And again, this, by the way, if you're shaking your head, you've got your arms folded right now because you disagree with me, I'm sorry, this is not an argument you can win with me. I've literally been studying this since 1993, and it's proven time and time again that it's better for an automotive repair facility to sell the visit and not necessarily quote the price over the phone. A couple of challenges. Number one, we don't know exactly what the car is going to need. We can't diagnose what the car is going to need over the phone. So if the customer has one price in their head and then they come into the shop and it's something different, we quote them brake pads over the phone, and then they come in, they need rotors and calipers as well. Now you're going to have to explain that gap, and now you've just messed up your credibility. The other thing is, a lot of customers are price shopping. They're price conscious over the phone. They don't know you yet. So the only thing they would have to go off is price. So if you throw a number out there, they hang up. They call another shop that throws a lower number. That other shop's going to get the business. But so we want to word the fact that we can't give the price in a way that it's going to benefit the customer. It's Mr. Customer, Miss Customer. I want to give you the most complete and accurate estimate possible. I don't want to tell you something that's not true. So the best thing is for me to schedule you this appointment so I can get an exact estimate of what we're dealing with. I've got a 2 o'clock and a 4 o'clock, which works best for you. And that's an example. But we want to sell the visit. And we want to sell the visit in a way that it benefits the customer. I've heard other things like, my boss said I can't give a price over the phone. I can't give a price over the phone. That just sounds like we're towing the company line, and that's going to turn off the customer and damage your relationship with that customer before it even starts. So please make sure that whoever's answering the phone, they're not just towing the company line. They're communicating why we can't give a price over the phone the right way, because we want to benefit the customer. It's like if you call the doctor and you say you have a headache, they're not going to say, you know what? Yeah, I definitely know for a fact you've got a migraine. I'm going to prescribe it. They can't do that until they see you. We want to make sure that we're conveying that to our customers. So we need to know what right sounds like. But understanding the pricing philosophy is critical. And the big takeaway is to avoid giving price over the phone. And oh, by the way, I know we've got customers that no matter what you say, no matter how you explain it, they're going to pressure you to give them a price. And in many cases, they're not your customer anyway. Let's focus on our customer. So next, we've talked about smiling. We've talked about pricing. So next, we're going to talk about measuring. So the secret to improvement is measurement. That's right. Measurement is the secret to improvement. Feel free to tweet that, because that's so important to understand that if you want to improve on anything, you have to measure it. I have a scale on the screen for a reason, because I know of people who have lost weight, and the only real thing they're doing is measuring themselves every day. They get on the scale, and knowing where they stand all the time helps them to make different decisions. So it's the same thing with the phones. If people know where they stand And if you're measuring how they're doing, they'll make different decisions and you'll see the improvement. Just remember, again, measurement is the secret to improvement. If you're talking about your finances, if you're talking about the phones, if you're talking about weight, anything. So let's make sure we're measuring. And just ask yourself, right now, do I have a measurement system in place to track how I'm doing on the phones? Just go ahead, ask, I'll give you time, talk to yourself. The answer is no. Please make sure you make that as a takeaway. I'm going to measure. I'm going to show you how to do that exactly. So we have the phone log. We have the phone script. I'll show you an example of that. We have phone shops that you can do. And then phone recording. And I just believe, maybe I'm crazy, but I just believe every shop should have a way to record their incoming and outgoing phone calls. Because again, measurement is the secret to success. You can't manage what you're not measuring. So please, let's make sure. I really think we'll get into this deeper. So here is a picture of the phone log. Very important. Have you ever seen anybody do this? Customer calls, says, yeah, I need price on brakes on my 2012 Toyota Camry. Okay, great. Be happy to help you with that. What's the year, make, and model of the vehicle? Right, we didn't remember because we have a lot going on. If we have a phone log that everybody's using, you prevent that, because when the customer says they've got a 2012 Toyota Camry or what have you, you can write it on the phone log. Another good way to use the phone log is at the beginning of every call, you can let the customer know that, hey, is it okay if I get your name and number now in the event that we get disconnected? And that way I can call you back. Get their name and number. Very important. And this ultimately can become a follow-up tool, because if you're talking to that customer, you've got their name and number, you've got that they've made an appointment, you've got it logged. Now, later in the week, if you don't see them, you can always call back and you can follow up. And you can also measure if the person you had, the service advisor, service manager, who you're paying to answer the phone correctly, you can measure if that person is doing it or not, because we said measurement is really the secret to success. So next we have the phone script, and this is really like a phone outline. This is just a snapshot of there's other points, but this is just a snapshot, and this is what you would use if you were ever phone shopping someone to evaluate how they were doing. I'm sending out a complete list of tools to the organizer, and they can certainly send this out as needed. So we have the phone script, but here's a summary. Here are 4 key points to remember from the phone script or the phone outline. And this is how you know if it was a winning call. Did you hear the smile? We talked about all the reasons earlier why we want to make sure we're smiling on the phone, but did you hear the smile? Did they quote a price? And if they're quoting prices, again, that's not a good thing. Did they offer an appointment? That's critical. Because if you miss that one step, to me, that's definitely a fail. Did you hear them offer the appointment? And would you bring your car to this shop? Because I've heard people, they go through the phone script, they go through the phone outline, they hit all the points, but I wouldn't bring my car to their shop because it didn't sound like they really wanted my business. They were just kind of going through the motions. They sounded like a robot. So you really want to, and here's the thing, if you're phone shopping someone and you consistently feel like, I didn't get the warm and fuzzies, I wouldn't bring my car to the shop based on this call. You better believe that's how your customers feel when they're talking to that person as well. So those are key points to consider, and certainly if you're taking notes, please make note of that. But those are 4 key things. And again, I'm going to send out the complete phone script just so you have it. And the other thing we talked about is recording the phone calls. And again, I'm a firm believer in the idea of every shop either being able to record your incoming and your outgoing phone calls. Because again, we want to measure it. Measurement is so critical. I mean, these are some options: Ring Central, Repair Pal, OMG, Auto Shop Solution. You can see the options right there. And there are others, but definitely come up with some type of way to record your phone calls. And here's the thing: when you're playing the recording back for your service advisor or your service manager, don't just tell them kind of what they did right or what they did wrong. Have them tell you. Play the call and then say, hey, so what did you think of that phone call? And that'll tell you if it's a head issue, because if they can tell you exactly what they're doing wrong, oh, you know what? I didn't offer the appointment. You know what? You couldn't really hear me smiling. You know what? I didn't use the customer's name. If they're telling you all the right things, you know they know what to do. So I would definitely, as you're playing the recording, let them tell you what went well and what didn't. And then you can have them tell you what are they going to do differently in the future so they have a better phone call going forward. But recording the phone calls, measurement, critical. And here's your Twiggs takeaway. And I want you to remember this, because a lot of times I will phone shop someone and they get a bad phone score and they go back and tell the owner, oh, well, I knew it was Eric Twiggs, so that's why I didn't really take the time. Don't believe it. Please remember this. How you do anything is how you do everything. How you do anything is how you do everything. So if they're answering the phone and failing a phone shop with you, if they're not offering you the appointment, if I call your shop and they're not offering me the appointment, chances are they're doing that with your customers as well. And it's even worse, because if they know it's a phone shop and they're still not answering the phone correctly, I mean, most people are going to put their best foot forward if they know they're being phone shopped. So that tells you they don't have the behaviors in place, the habits in place. So please keep that in mind. If you hear that, if someone says, oh, I knew it was a phone shop, that's why I failed, just picture me pointing. How you do anything is how you do everything. So here's some tools to help you on your quest to answer the phones, be better on the phones. And by the way, I'm going to send this so that anybody that wants access to these can have them. So we have the phone script. We're going to have the phone log, and please, I would challenge you to make sure you've got these by the phones. We're putting these to use. I also have this is an added bonus, a price shopper script. I've got specific words that you can use. So when the customer is hammering you to get and insisting on getting a price, I've got specific wording that you can use and I'm going to send out. And this can really help you to be better on the phone. And there's a webinar, it's called The Psychology of the Phone Shopper. I'll see if I'll provide you with a link for that as well. But those are some tools that you'll get just as an added bonus. And also, I'll send out the call recording options, so you'll have that at your disposal. So now I want to hear about takeaways. So if you could just kind of type into the chat right now. This is the participation part of the show. What did you take away? I want you to tell me what's one idea that you're going to use to be better on the phones. Let's go ahead, type it in the chat right now. One takeaway. All right, here we go. Measuring makes a difference. If you measure, you improve. Only 4% offer the appointment. Again, remember, you're gambling that your service advisor is in the top 4% of the country if you're just not focused on the phones. Again, it's not a bet I would make. Offer the appointment, measurement, Sell the visit. That's a great one. Okay. All right. So good. So those are some good takeaways. Smile on the phone. Someone just chimed in with. Here are some basic things for you to remember from my presentation. Set up smile reminders. Don't quote prices over the phone. Implement a measurement system. Again, measurement is the secret to your success. Anything you want to improve, just start relentlessly measuring it, and it's going to get better. ATI phone script, or some type of phone script by every phone. All right, I see somebody said we're going to download your documents. That's a great takeaway. All right. So at this time, I mean, we're coming towards the tail end. I want to open it up to questions that anybody may have. What questions do you have for me? Okay, I mean, you can type them in. All right.
While we're waiting for questions, Eric, I'll make sure that you get the email address of everyone who's in here. You can just forward them the documents.
Okay. Good. So I see some questions coming in now. Let's see. How do you deal with a service advisor that is resistant to change? So again, it kind of goes back to the head, heart, hands. It sounds like it's a heart issue. I mean, we want to make sure they understand what's in it for them. We want to make sure, sometimes people, there's a saying that people won't do what they don't understand. So sometimes we mistake resistance to, and it's really a lack of understanding. So we want to make sure we give them every opportunity, and we make sure we hold them accountable. But at the end of the day, if they understand what's in it for them, and they've got the tools, we've given them the resources, and they still won't change, we may need to change them. I don't want to sound cruel and cold-hearted, but we either change the person or change the person. If we're giving them all the tools and resources necessary to be successful and they're choosing not to. But I would say, let's not confuse resistance for someone who may not understand or may not have the knowledge and skill necessary. Let's see, another question. Where do you get the 7% number? That's an ATI statistic. I'll send out the email, but it's that 55, 38, and 7. It's very well known in the world of communication. It came from like neuro-linguistic programming, but I can send you the exact author of that person who made the author of that statistic. That's very well known. So the big takeaway is how important that, tonality and smiling and gestures and body language is to the overall communication. But I can certainly send out the specific details on that. Let's see. When the customer is demanding a price, is it okay to provide a range? I would my feeling is that it's better just to sell the visit. Because even, again, a lot of times, even if the range is off, if they come in and they're still going to be holding you to what that number that they heard. I mean, I just think the best case scenario is to sell the visit, sell the value of them coming into the shop, explain why it's in their best interest to come in, as opposed to us trying to get the crystal ball out and diagnose it over the phone. How do you effectively deal with a price shopper to get them in the door? Again, I go back to what I said. A lot of times people won't do what they don't understand. And a lot of times when I've had success with people, when they really understand the complexity of what we're dealing with, they understand why we can't necessarily give them a price. Now, again, we live in a world of exceptions. There are going to be some people that no matter what explanation you give them, they're still going to insist on the price. They're still going to say, yeah, Twiggs, I hear all that, but how much is it going to cost me? At the end of the day, they're not your customer in most cases. Do the best you can to really sell the visit and sell the value. All right. If they insist, pretend it's Eric Twiggs calling you. That's what I do. That's our friends at Rick and Ray's Automotive. All right. I mean, we have a little bit. I purposely left time. We have time for a couple more questions, and then I'll bring this to a close. Okay. Well, again, I'm Eric Twiggs. I mean, you can certainly, if anything I can ever assist you with, etwiggs@autotraining.net, etwiggs@autotraining.net. That's what I have. I want to close with some final thoughts from Bruce Lee. Knowing is not enough. We must apply. Willing is not enough. We must do. So based on the fact that you were on this webinar with me today, that's evidence that you know. The question is, what will you do? That's my time. Thank you very much. I challenge you to master the fundamentals of the phone.
Great. Thank you so much, Eric. That was awesome. And yeah, so anyone that was in the webinar, if you're looking for those documents, I'll get your emails out to Eric later today once the online summit's over. So he can send those over either probably end of day today or tomorrow. So stay tuned for that. And then once you're done, Eric, you're welcome to hang out a little bit and answer some more questions that come in. And then once you're ready to be done, just stop sharing your screen so I can share mine.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'll hang on until 2:45. So, I mean, if anybody's got any other questions, I'm here. I'll answer them for you. And then we'll end at 2:45. I purposely left time just to be able to do Q&A and interact. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. And yeah, guys, don't be shy since we don't have any industry trade shows. Now's your time to get your questions answered. Anything, whether or not Eric covered in his presentation, any questions you have, just let us know. I'm sure he's got an answer for you and some words of wisdom.
Absolutely. And just something else I wanted to share, you know, anytime there is a crisis, like any crisis I've ever seen, you know, there's two parts to it, right? So you have the danger, and then, but you also have the opportunity. You know, that's in any crisis. You know, that book that I mentioned about the obstacle is the way, it gives all these examples of people that thrived in crisis situations. You know, some consider this to be a crisis situation. What an opportunity we have to get better on the phones, to really get to hone our processes, to, you know, practice with the role playing, to have someone phone shop. And because business is, we're going to come out of this, and I think we're going to get inundated with customer requests. And when we get inundated with customer requests, when the phone starts ringing more, we've already practiced those fundamentals. You know, we need to really make sure we're turning this downtime into prime time and getting the practice as possible. So the key, again, just remember, just focus on the opportunity. Okay.
Yeah, that's awesome, Eric. I think it's always important in these times to stay focused on the future. And I think, you know, everyone at ATI and everyone at Auto Vitals and all the industry partners we have in here are all focused on the future. So yeah, that's really good. And, you know, John, our CEO, always tells us, like, there's going to be two groups of people after this whole thing is over: the people who took the time to prepare for tomorrow and the people who did not. And you want to definitely fall into that first bucket.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Well, I mean, certainly I can certainly turn this back over to you at this point. doesn't look like any other questions are coming in. I mean, people can certainly reach out to me as needed. But we go from there. I hope everybody's inspired to master those phone fundamentals. I'll go ahead and stop sharing, and we can turn it over at this time since we're not getting any more questions.
Perfect. Thanks so much. And yeah, I threw your email in the chat. So if anyone has any follow-up questions, they know where to reach you.
Fantastic. Okay.
Cool. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Have a good day, Eric.
Have a great